I can still remember the faded, chipped blueprint of my childhood game of memory. The thick cardboard squares we flipped in search of pairs, thrilled when we found a match, frustrated when we accidentally revealed a match to our opponent. Maybe you can remember this game too? At this point, I've played about 1,000,000 times as a parent, watching my children's eyes light up when they rack up more matches than I do, which is pretty much every time. I think my daughter was beating me consistently by the time she was 4. The memory game seems to stick in our game culture like no other. I see a new twist on it everywhere I go. Most recently, National Parks memory when I stepped into the store at Sequoia National Park last week. So how can we use this go-to game in the classroom to gamify ELA? Well, in a lot of ways. Let's talk about how you can make your own memory game with pretty much any material you want to cover. Welcome to the Spark Creativity Teacher Podcast, a podcast for English teachers looking for more. More creativity, more engagement, more joy. And no more scripted curriculum, lesson planning ruts, or boring book lists. I'm Betsy Potash, and I'm honored you're trusting me to help. You're not alone on this creative journey anymore. So first off, in the extremely unlikely chance you've never played memory before, let's talk about how the game works. A memory game is a set of cards with matching pairs. If you're playing, for example, Wild Birds Memory, which we have at our cabin, you might see a female blue jay on one card in a pair, and then the male blue jay on the other. Then you might see a pair of flamingos, a pair of eagles, loons, goldfinches, woodpeckers, black-capped chickadees, etc. You shuffle up this deck of cards and you flip them over so that nobody can see the pictures. And you create kind of like a grid. Maybe it's 10 by 10, or maybe you just choose some of the matches and it's 5 by 5. Then you're going to go back and forth with the person you're playing with. You are going to flip over 2 so that everyone can see the images. Now, on the first flip, it's super unlikely that you'll get a match, right? You'll probably get like a flamingo and a goldfinch, and everyone is instantly going to be trying to memorize, okay, the flamingo is in the top left corner, the goldfinch is one from the side in the bottom. And then the next person will flip. You flip yours back over. Now no one can see any cards again. The next person flips 2. Everyone is trying to memorize where all the cards are and what's on the cards. And you just keep going until somebody finally flips a match. Once they flip their match, they get to grab those cards, put them in front of them, and then flip 2 more cards. As long as they get matches, they keep collecting them and going on. As soon as they lose, it goes on to the next person. Play continues until all the cards have been matched and collected, and then you count up, hey, who got the most matches? You can play with one partner, you can play with 2 or 3 other people. I suppose you could keep going and add lots and lots of people, but I think 2 to 4 is probably the sweet spot. So let's start imagining how this game of memory might work in the classroom. I created a set of memory cards a couple of years ago that have a literary device on one half of the pair and then an example of that device on the other half. So for example, you might flip a card that says alliteration, and then it has the definition, repeating consonant sounds at the beginning of 2 or more neighboring words or syllables. Then, if you find it, you might flip the card that has the example, and at the top it says, example, Lakeisha laughed loudly at his ludicrous video. If you get these 2 cards, you got a pair, you collect them. If you happen to get like alliteration and then you flipped the example for illusion, or you flipped the definition of juxtaposition, then you're going to read it, realize it's not a match, flip it back over. So that's one example, literary devices and examples of them, but I'm sure you're already starting to think of more. Maybe you want to partner Latin or Greek roots on one card with their definition, and then on a partner card, a word that's an example of that type of root. Maybe on one card you have a vocabulary word, and on the other card it's synonym. Maybe on one card you have a poetic device, and on the other card a line of poetry that uses it. or on one card, a literary period, and on the other card, a description of that period. On one card, a type of source to be cited, and on the other card, the correct citation format for that type of source. You're getting the idea now, I'm sure. Anytime you have information you want students to review that easily lends itself to matching, you can gamify it in this simple, fun way, adding a little element of play to that process of reviewing for retention. So how are you actually going to make these cards? It's easy, really. Just open a Canva doc or a Google slide and drop rectangles across your page. Do the duplicate function or the copy and paste function. So all your rectangles are exactly the same size. You don't want to give any hints with the size of your cards. And then consider maybe matching the color of the borders of your rectangles or some kind of matching symbol on each partnership of cards so that your students aren't going to have any arguments about whether their match is correct. In my literary devices example that I was just talking about, I put matching colors around the definition of the literary device and the example on the partnered card. So like consonants, the definition is inside of a purple circle. And then the example on the example card is also inside of a purple circle. So even if one student was to come in and say, oh, that example has, two words with a similar first sound, it could be alliteration. No, it's clear it partners with consonants because they're both in purple circles. You'll just kind of skip over any potential arguing if you add that additional element. Then once you have your deck, I'd suggest you print them out on cardstock, maybe a fun color of cardstock. If you've got the option, you could also laminate them so you can easily use them year after year. And that's it. Once you have your memory cards ready to go, you can play them anytime to gamify review of an ELA concept, whatever concept you've chosen. And that can be handy, like say a small group finishes early and you want to give them something to do, or a lesson wraps up before you expected it to and you need something to do for 8 minutes. Or you can just schedule it in. Schedule some gamified review as part of a full class lesson plan anytime you want to. Thanks so much for joining me today to talk about how to take a popular game and turn it into an easy way to review concepts in ELA. Until next time, take care of yourself and stay creative.